Your life as Iran. 2,500 years of saying no. You're born 2,500 years ago, and your first act on Earth is something no civilization has done before. Your king, Cyrus, conquers Babylon in 539 BC, and instead of slaughtering everyone, he frees the slaves, declares religious freedom, and writes it down on clay so nobody can pretend it didn't happen. The world's first charter of human rights, and it came from you. While Greece is still debating who counts as a citizen, you're running an empire from the Aegean to the Indus with royal roads and governors in every province. Persepolis rises out of your plateau like proof that civilization didn't begin where Europe says it did. You write poetry, you study the stars, you invent gardens that bloom in the desert. You are Persia, and the rest of the world is still catching up. Alexander Burns. Persepolis in 330 BC and calls himself great for it. He dies young. His empire falls apart. You're still here. The Arabs arrive in the 7th century and bring Islam, and you don't just adopt it, you remake it. The Islamic Golden Age runs on your scholars and your poets and your mathematicians. Rumi writes in your language. Hafez writes in your language. Ferdowsi spends 30 years on 50,000 verses to make sure nobody forgets who you are. The Mongols level your cities and you rebuild. The Timurids come and you rebuild again. Every century, a new army, and every century, the same result. They leave or they crumble, and you're still here. Your poetry outlasts every sword that ever crossed your border. Then the Americans and the British show up. 1901, and Britain discovers your oil, and suddenly your most valuable resource belongs to London. They pull the wealth out of your ground and ship the profits home while your people work the refineries for scraps. In 1953, you elect Mossadegh, and he nationalizes the oil and says, "This belongs to us." And the CIA and British intelligence overthrow him within months. A democratically elected leader removed by the two countries that will lecture the entire planet about democracy for the next 70 years. They put the Shah back on the throne, and the Shah fills your prisons with anyone who disagrees. His secret police, Savak, trained by the CIA and Israel's Mossad, torture your students, disappear your journalists, and crush every voice that speaks against foreign control. The oil money leaves your country in tankers and comes back as weapons contracts for the Shah's military, while your villages still don't have running water. 1979, and your people fill the streets. Millions. The Shah leaves. You write your own constitution and build your own government for the first time in decades, and the West acts like you committed a crime by choosing to govern yourself. They never forgave you for taking back what was yours. Within a year, their boy, Saddam, invades. The United States sells him weapons, gives him intelligence, satellite imagery of your troop positions handed directly to the Iraqi military. And when Saddam uses chemical weapons on your soldiers, when mustard gas melts the lungs of your teenagers in trenches, the United States says nothing, does nothing, continues selling. The same country that will invade Iraq 20 years later for allegedly having weapons of mass destruction is the one that sold those weapons to the man gassing your children in the 1980s. 8 years. 1 million of your people dead or wounded. You fight completely alone, and you don't fold, and you don't surrender. Because folding isn't something you've done in 2,500 years, and you're not starting now. After the war, they switched tactics. Sanctions. Decades of them. The goal isn't to change your government's behavior. The goal is to make your people suffer enough that they do it themselves. Collective punishment dressed in policy language. Your currency collapses. Medicine becomes impossible to import. Cancer patients die waiting for drugs that are sitting in warehouses in other countries because the banking sanctions won't let the payment go through. They call this diplomacy. Your children call it what it is. Israel runs a shadow war on your soil. They send the Stuxnet virus into your nuclear facilities, a joint operation with the US, and the world calls it clever. They assassinate your nuclear scientists in your own streets, bullets and car bombs in Tehran, and nobody at the UN calls it terrorism because the rules about sovereignty apparently don't apply when the target is Iranian. They sit on undeclared nuclear warheads across the border, and nobody in Washington or Brussels asks them a single question. While you're sanctioned for a program you repeatedly say is for energy, the hypocrisy isn't even trying to hide anymore. 2015, and you sign the nuclear deal. You comply with it. international inspectors confirm you're complying. And in 2018, the United States pulls out anyway and slaps on maximum pressure sanctions because your compliance was never the point. Control was the point. It was always the point. In 2020, they assassinate your general, Soleimani, with a drone strike on Iraqi soil, a military leader in a sovereign country, killed by a foreign government on a third country's territory, and they call it self-defense. Your people fill the streets in grief, and the countries that talk about human rights every single day don't say a word. February 28th, 2026, the United States and Israel launch coordinated strikes on your country. They kill your supreme leader. They kill his daughter-in-law. They kill his grandson. A sovereign nation's leader assassinated by foreign bombs inside his own home. They didn't consult their own allies before they did it. Germany will say that out loud 2 weeks later when the Americans come asking for help with the mess they made. And you don't collapse. Your constitution activates. Your institutions hold. The system they spent 45 years calling fragile does exactly what it was built to do. Within days, your assembly of experts convenes during an active war and selects a new leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the man they just killed. A veteran who survived the Iran-Iraq trenches. A man burying his father and his wife and his child, while American and Israeli jets are still in his airspace. He closes the Strait of Hormuz. 1/5 of the world's oil goes through that strait. Oil shoots past $100 a barrel. 1,000 tankers stuck on the wrong side waiting for permission to move. And the American president, the one who ordered the strikes that started this, goes on television and asks 7 countries to send warships to reopen the strait. Because suddenly, the most powerful military on Earth needs help cleaning up a war. It started without asking anyone. Nobody comes. Germany says no. The UK says no. France says no. Japan says no. China says no. Greece says no. Not a single country publicly commits a warship because every one of them opposed this war from the start, and the ones who depend on the oil are already calling Tehran directly to ask for safe passage instead. Turkey gets through. India gets through. Iran says the strait is open to the whole world except the United States and its allies. The country that tried to choke you with sanctions for 40 years is now watching you control the flow of oil to the entire planet and asking other countries to come fix it while you decide who sails and who doesn't. The American president says your new leader's name on television and threatens to kill him too. Same threat, same playbook, different decade. Mossadegh, the Shah's installation. Arming Saddam, the sanctions, the scientists, Soleimani, the airstrike, and now this. 70 years of the same country telling you that you don't get to exist on your own terms. Somewhere in Qom, a kid opens a jurisprudence textbook the same way students have opened those books for 1,000 years. Somewhere in Persepolis, the columns Cyrus built are still standing. Somewhere in London, behind museum glass, your clay cylinder sits, a document about human rights. You wrote 2,500 years before the people who took it got around to the idea themselves. You are Iran. Every empire that tried to break you is dust. You're still here.